Thank you, Dido, and you'll have my report in front of you. I'd just like to highlight a few of the issues and give you some news on good news on an inaccuracy in the report, where things have now moved on in a positive way from when the report was written. I think just picking out, I would have absolutely started with the same message about winter and the pressures. We've discussed that. I think there's no question that the NHS is performing heroically. And we look forward to the pressures easing as time goes on, but it's been a long winter and staff have worked incredibly hard. Just picking up a couple of points from my report, I've been giving evidence to Parliament on a couple of key areas alongside Simon Stevens from NHS England, and first into the sustainability and transformation of the NHS, where I was able to talk about not only the financial challenges in the sector that we serve, but also the significant work that's being done to drive productivity, efficiency and improvement across the NHS provider sector. So I think it was a really good discussion with lots of issues raised on a really important topic. And then just more recently on with the Health Select Committee, looking at integrated care, and I think a strong message coming from both Simon and I, respectively, that the importance of getting integrated care and transformation across places right, and the importance of that to the next stage of development of the NHS. So a good opportunity to engage with Parliament on two very important topics. And coming forward, looking ahead to next week, Simon and I have both got Public Accounts Committee session looking at the very significant rise in emergency demand that we talk about a lot when we think about how our hospitals in particular, but the other parts of the provider landscape are dealing with a changing demographic, an ageing population and increasing frailty. So that was important. A couple of other things I would highlight. We're now picking up on the organisational change work that I highlighted to the last board. It was only a couple of months ago, but we've achieved, I think, and moved a long way since then. So but two vital pieces of work underway. Firstly, working to with the support of McKinsey, but really working to answer the questions about how we in NHS Improvement offer the maximum support and guidance and assistance to the development of the NHS, particularly reflecting upon the fact that when NHS Improvement came together back in 2016, for understandable reasons, not a huge amount of time was spent looking at the broad structure and operating model of the organisation. I think in a changing NHS with 232 organisations spending £80 billion to oversee and to make sure that they deliver good quality care to our patients, it's very timely, I think, to do this work, and I think it's really important. And I think we will, at the end of it, get recommendations on our operating structure and how we should be organised to deliver the best level of improvement and support to the NHS. So that work is progressing apace, and it fits in, dovetails very strongly with a parallel and equally important piece of work, which is working with NHS England to make sure that we are jointly supporting an NHS that is increasingly recognising the need to work together beyond organisational boundaries. And so those two important pieces of internal work, I think, are progressing at pace, and we will bring proposals forward from that. Moving along, Dido's mentioned the Kirkup report outlining the really serious failings in Liverpool Community Health NHS Trust, the review led by Dr. Bill Kirkup. I'll be addressing in some significant detail the depth and the importance of our response to that report later on in the agenda. So I won't say more about it now, other than at a personal level, it was deeply difficult to read the failings in care and governance that were described in Dr. Kirkup's report, and I think the onus is on all of us now to pick it up and to drive the recommendations forward. And I hope we'll be bringing a substantive set of recommendations for discussion later in the agenda that reflect the seriousness and the importance of the issues raised in relation to Liverpool. Moving ahead, we published since the last board meeting joint NHS England and NHS Improvement planning guidance for the NHS. It's part of a 2-year plan that runs on through 18-19, but nonetheless it's an important refresh that talks about the use of the additional 1.6 billion that was received for 2018-19 in funding, and an additional further 540 million available through the NHS mandate for the coming year. And I think it's a key thing for us and for the broader NHS in the sense that... You're right, Sarah.
Excuse me.
It's an important thing for the broader NHS in that it sets out the ground rules for the planning round, which is now underway. And I think, given the level of operational pressure that we've seen, particularly but not exclusively within the acute sector, but I think you could apply it to other areas of the NHS provider sector. It's really important, and I've been going around talking to groups of chief executives continually about this, as have colleagues, that this year we absolutely take the lesson of looking very long and hard at the rising emergency demand that we're getting from our changing patient demographic, and we plan properly and fully to meet that capacity. Absolutely continuing a transformation and improvement, absolutely critical, but making sure that the capacity assumptions in plans of 232 organisations are appropriate and will give us the basis for ensuring good quality care for our patients, as well as delivering the aspirations that we continue to have for their timely and high quality treatment during next year. And finally, responding to what is now an inaccuracy in my report, I accurately reported that since the board last met, Barking, Havery and Redbridge University Hospitals NHS Trust was placed into financial special measures in February. That was necessary because of the very serious and rapid decline in their financial performance. On a more positive note, I'm delighted to say that para 17 of my report, which refers to no providers having exited special measures for quality since the last report, is inaccurate. So I'm delighted to say that just yesterday I think it was announced that the Princess Alexandra Hospital which has been rated inadequate previously since October 2016, owing to the level of improvement in the clinical services that it's offered to its patients and their quality, has now exited quality special measures. And I think that is a really, really welcome message for the patients using that hospital, as well as a tribute to the staff and leadership team working in that organisation. So that's great news, I think, to end my report.
Yeah, excellent. Questions, comments on Ian's report, Regis?
Two questions, comments. One sort of quite general, and then one quite specific. The general one sort of wraps up a little bit, Ian, on a number of things that you've said about the integration agenda, the planning agenda, the working jointly agenda, and it's something I'd like us to come back to at a future meeting, and it's how money works in the system and how money flows around the system. So this combination we have at the moment of a payment by results system, a control total system, an STF payment system, it sort of doesn't work in terms of long-term sustainability. So I don't know whether this was something that was picked up at all at the Public Accounts Committee. It's the type of thing you can use to try and bear down on the problem in the short term, but it doesn't, in the longer term, provide, I believe, the right incentives to do the things that we want people to do, and the right balance between central control and sort of local determination. So a long-winded way of saying it would be good to get on one of our agendas where, between us and NHS England, we're actually thinking of going on this beyond the financial year that we're about to go into. So we're a bit stuck with what we've got for next year. But unless we do the thinking now, there's a danger we end up, again, being stuck in the same thing for the following years. That was my sort of broad general one. There was one very specific.
Right. Do you want to quickly just respond to that to say that I strongly agree that we should be having that discussion. I think there's no question that the financial mechanisms put into place fall into two categories. One, the sort of payment by results system that we've had for many a long year, but which now certainly in patches such as integrated care systems that take more responsibility for a system-wide approach may be replaced with new payment systems going forward that more actively encourage integration and collaboration between organisations in the care of patients. And secondly, some of the mechanisms, you talk about control totals, I highlighted to the PAC where we had this very discussion, the financing mechanisms for trusts that were in the most challenged financial position, and in particular the 6% charged on interest for cash loans for trusts that were in financial special measures, which I think those were understandable mechanisms, but they need now to be revisited. 18-19 is the last year of the provider stability fund. The current control totals run on, the current loan arrangements run on. I think we absolutely need to revisit that, and that was certainly a message I was giving to the PAC when we had that discussion the other week.
What's the timetable? Because I assume we need to actually get on with this quite quickly to develop some joint proposals with NHS England. Elizabeth,
so the work, I can confirm the work has recently started. So literally the draft plans come in for 18-19 and we're already starting to talk about 19-20 because there's an urgency. And the urgency in particular is around the tariff engagement document that you know, and through the consultation process there's a lead time. So they are early conversations that I would expect also to come back through the Joint Finance Committee that involve finance and also strategy. And we're looking at all of the decisions and decision points that need to be made. At the same time, obviously, last week at the NHS Providers Conference, we started to engage with the chief executives, and I've engaged with the finance community around engage around what they would like to see and what they think works well as we shape this. So we get some real feedback from what, how this is landed. So that's quite important.
But the timeline needs to be in sufficient time for people to start planning as they move into the second half of the year. So I think that's the timeline we need, and we need obviously our own discussions then.
So
to fit
should
that.
we be aiming to have a board discussion at our next board development meeting, so that we can have a free-ranging, open discussion before you start to get to proposals?
I think that'd be really helpful for us. I mean, I've spoken with David Roberts about us picking this up on the Joint Finance Committee, but actually having a bit more of a development session first on it to help frame some of that, I think would be really helpful.
Okay.
I think that'd be extremely strong. Supplementary suggestion really, which is when we start that work and have that discussion, to include at the same time the currency in which we carry out budgeting discussions with our charges. And I put it more widely because they will obviously include integrated care systems and provider trust and so on. We had a discussion a while ago about the awkwardness of using the control totals as the vehicle for having discussions about our expectations financially and the wish to move to a more realistic basis for budgeting. So if we can include that in the agenda.
Definitely needs to be
Could we
part of
take an action to just
Great.
set out the timetable, when you'll come here, when we will have a working session with NHS England, when it will then go to the Joint Finance Committees, and when it will then we'll have a recommendation for consultation more widely in the system? Because I'm very mindful that there's a lot of steps to go through and not much time.
And just to add, we're doing this work from a revenue perspective, but also equally as importantly a capita.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, now my specific, again, apologies that I'm sort of playing to stereotype, but there's another finance one. And it's on
Which
the...
we're disappointed in.
Yeah, come on,
it's fine. And it's on the Barkinghaven-Redbridge situation. So you mentioned about them going into special measures because of a rapid deterioration in their financial performance. it is, and I know we're doing work in this area, it's hard to see this as a rapid deterioration in financial performance as opposed to a rapid deterioration in reported financial position of the audit, and they're two different things.
You're right.
And I'd just like to take something to the Audit and Risk Committee about how do we spot this sort of thing before it actually
I think,
happens.
and I think it links with the last discussion. So, you know, as we look at the I&E position of organisations, it's also important that we look at their financial sustainability and their cash position and all that goes with it. So I think it would be good to have that discussion.
So I would just be saying I will take this one to the Audit and Risk Committee and then look at, well, what are our indicators of
Yes,
how we spot anything like this in the future.
yes.
Great.
Sarah and then Pat.
There are some interesting points that come out of the work on barking, which I've been talking about with Stephen and Kathy, and I'll be at the Audit and Risk Committee, so we can pick that up particularly then.
Just a matter of cash, and it usually shows up in the end in cash, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
the question is, how rigorous are we in just requiring cash data come in all the time to tell us? Because that's, I don't know, not for this meeting, but perhaps we could have a discussion at a later point about whether we need much more accurate cash forecasting coming in all the time to head it off.
Yeah. Good.
Good.
Kathy.
Just a very quick one, and thank you for referring to Princess Alex, because I think that's
It's really good.
it's a great move. Just a couple of points I'd just like to highlight. One is the combination of chair and chief executive there. This is their second trust that they have supported exiting from special measures. They were the pair at Hinchinbrook. And the other thing really is, I'd like to say thank you to our own teams and people who've been supporting the organisation and the wider system, because they've done a lot internally, but they've had also some effective support. So I think we should acknowledge that as well. So it's a good result.
Yeah, great. Ruth?
Absolutely agree, and the partnership of strong medical and nurse director leadership. I know Nancy Fontaine and her team have done a superb job of just working hard and getting. They got it early, didn't they? They got it early, and because they got it early, they were able to improve. Because this is one of the very quick turnarounds.
It is.
Phenomenal.
Lots for us to learn, that's great. Good. Any other questions or comments on Ian's report?